Well, hey, good morning or afternoon, depending where you are. And thank you for joining us for this session, which is your 2020 Internet Marketing Plan. This is a session that's going to be really specialized towards and tailored to folks in the legal services. But if you happen to be one of the squanderers that I don't recognize, feel free to follow along and we'll see what you can take away. I'm sure there's going to be some great takeaways for your business as well. Before we get started, I just want to take a few moments, let you know what we plan to cover, and then we'll dive right in. First and foremost, we're going to be setting goals for 2020, and that's going to come down to how many leads, calls, referrals, basically inbound communications for potential clients that you're going to need to hit your target. We're going to talk a little bit about the fundamentals of marketing success and really three fundamental areas that you're going to need to hone in on in your practice and in your messaging so that you've got a viable message and a compelling message for your potential clients. We're also going to talk about your website and conversions. And every year things have a little bit of nuance, a little bit of change. I'm going to share with you what's working across the legal services industry and frankly in the digital marketing industry for building conversions and ultimately more business, more sales, and a big picture of the online marketing channels, how everything taps together and how you can use that flow to maximize your overall lead flow online. A couple more trends for you to take away, consider, and then we'll actually sit down and develop an action plan based on where you are now and what you need to do now. For this, I'm going to ask for your attention. This is meant to be an interactive seminar, not something that you play in the background. So if you got a cell phone nearby, go ahead, hit that mute button, turn it off, put it under a pillow, whatever it takes to help you focus on today's content. Same thing is going to go with any distractions that you might have on the machine, on your laptop that you're assisting in. So turn off your Facebook, Instagram, any of your other social distractions. My commitment to you is that if you're able to engage on this process, that this is going to be a game changer for you and for your practice, for your firm. And just so you got a little bit of an incentive on all of that, if you do stay till the end, I'll be sharing three of our biggest takeaways, marketing documents with you. You'll get the Marketing Done Right checklist, which is a checklist to go through with whoever handles your marketing touch points, and just make sure that you've got a solid foundation for all of your efforts. We'll also be sharing just our experience on what the most commonly searched terms are in legal services. We've got about 4 or 5 of the most common practice specialties. If for whatever reason yours isn't represented there, Randy is in the chat, or you can even contact us directly, and we'll pull the highest volume key terms for your area of practice. It's a very important piece to know because those search terms are actually indicators of intent, right? If someone's searching for a DUI attorney near me now, they probably have an intent and a need that needs to be solved right now. And you want to make sure that you're showing up whenever those people are searching for people with your expertise. In the back here, certainly not the least though, is the digital dominance guideline. And what it is a breakout of what we see as the 7 most important channels that marketers need to focus on and law firms need to focus on to drive leads for their firms. So who are we? Who am I? Why should you even listen to us? We've been in the marketing game as an agency really since marketing was in the dial-up internet phases. So long history of working with organizations and firms that are building. What we've found over the years is that frankly, the legal clients, the law firms have been some of our better clients, some of our best clients. So we're really focusing in on that and actually in the process of letting some of our other clients go just so that we can really focus in this area. Author of the Complete Guide to Internet Marketing for Attorneys and Law Firms, associate member of the Jacksonville Bar, and of course we'll be joining a few more bar associations throughout 2020, and have spoken at various industry events across the U.S. With that in our history, we've built over 200 websites. I actually think at the end of this year, we'll be somewhere between 220 and 230, and have launched, actually taken brands from zero to their growth, over 25 brands over the years. Would love to work with you in whatever capacity you are. Specifically in the legal sphere, we've worked with attorneys across the gamut, from intellectual property, trade marketing, to personal injury, and even working with some folks in software as a service, practice management. Our goal and our mission, basically what we do, is to work with 200 law firms to triple the size of their legal business. And hopefully at the takeaway of today, you'll be well on your way, your path to do the same. So question, love to hear from you. Again, this is meant to be an interactive session. What is the hardest part about marketing your law firm or your practice online? There should be a chat out there. Just go ahead and take a moment. Let me know what you're encountering. So Joey, looks like you need a site that looks good on a phone. Yeah, mobile's a pretty important one. And looks like Betty's getting the phone to ring. Yeah, it's a pretty common one. That's one that we hear a lot of too. Today's session should be helpful for you. Let's talk a little bit about that. Before we dive in, there is a download that you should have gotten with the email confirmation. If not, you can just go to our website, thinkonething.com, and then /workbook. It's about a 10-pager. It's going to really outline some of the questions that I'm going to be asking you, and some of the terms, some of the ideas that we'll be sharing on this webinar. If for whatever reason you're not in front of a printer, can't get to it right now, that's not a problem. Just grab a napkin, a legal pad if you've got one, and then you can jot down your thoughts and ideas there so that you remember to follow up on this. So first part of our section, there's going to be four big topic areas that we're going to cover, is just setting clear goals. And this is one of the things that tends to be a game changer for the folks that actually embrace the process. But my mentor spent quite a bit of time hammering this quote: "Success is goals, all else is commentary." And I'm sure we've all have those clients or peers, friends that have a million goals, right? They're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do this, and they can't stop telling you how much they're going to do. Funny thing is, after a year's time, 5 years' time, they're still saying the same thing. And that's what we want to avoid with this. So we're gonna take this a step further and really set the right type of goals. With that, and before that though, just want to talk a little bit about the power of goals. And one of the things I've noticed personally, is when I hit a plateau, when things are just going, maybe I'm spinning my wheels or I'm doing good, but it's kind of that moment. It's a bit like, when you're out to sea and on that sailboat and there's no wind, right? There's nothing to drive you towards your next accomplishment, towards the next thing that you want to do. And really the power of a goal is it creates that wind for you. And that's where I'm going to encourage you, and why we're spending so much time at the beginning of this webinar just talking about that. Having a clear goal is like wind in your sails. And here's a study some of you may have been familiar with that just really hammers that point home. Harvard University, I think this was their grad students that they interviewed, but back in the 70s, they interviewed their grad students. And what they found when asking them about their goals was that 84%, right? What is that? 5 out of 6 didn't have any specific goals about where they wanted to go. They just didn't have any specific goals. A vast minority, 13%, did have goals, but didn't write them down. And I think most people, when you speak with them, most motivated people, they'll at least say, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is where I'm trying to go. So 13%. But there were 3% that actually took the time to write down their goals. They had clear goals, written down goals, and their plans on how to accomplish them. And, after years and following up with these students, the results were astonishing. And by that, at least to me, right, the 13% who just had goals, they were financially earning on average double what their student peers in the 84% group who didn't write down goals were doing. So literally, great way to double your income, if that's the takeaway you want, is just have a goal, right? Whatever it is, make sure that you have a goal that you're working towards. But the huge takeaway, it was just staggering, is that the 3% that really went on the process that we're about to do here, they were earning on average 10 times what all of their peer groups were earning. And just a great way to put numbers to the importance of having these goals. So here's our framework for today. You need to have a written goal. You need to have your written plans. And with that, at a bare minimum today, we're going to say, let's set a goal for 1 year. We'll start with a financial goal. Where do you want to be at the end of 2020 in terms of all of your billables? Then we're going to break that down into quarterly. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, the easy thing is just divide by 4. But the reality is you're going to gain momentum, right? And for some of you, there might even be seasonality. So you're going to have to spend a little bit more time than just dividing by 4 on your annual goal to figure out where your quarterly goals are going to be. And then let's talk about what does that mean monthly. And here's the important part that most people skip, right? In this season of putting together my annual commitment to myself, you write it down and then you don't look at it until the end of the year. No. For each of these intermediary time periods, I'm going to say, put it on your calendar, right? Take that Friday at the end of every month and block off a couple hours to say, okay, this is where I wanted to be. This is where I am. And how does my time spent as I look back on my calendar correlate with how well I'm accomplishing my goal? What many of us find is all of the time we spend, 90% of the time, isn't spent on the things that drive the goals that we want. Clio, and I'm working on getting this as a giveaway piece. Clio did a study of attorneys, and another astonishing finding to me. Assuming an attorney has an 8-hour day, and let's face it, most attorneys are working a lot more than that, 1.9 hours, right? Not even 2 hours of that 8-hour day are spent on billable activities. 2.9, so almost 3 hours, are spent on the overhead of running a business. And we all realize that there's a lot of business that is behind law. And the thing that was a little staggering there is 3 to 4 hours a day spent on business development efforts, networking, meeting folks, et cetera, et cetera. So when it gets down to that, you're going to be looking back on your goals and saying, okay, where am I focusing my time, my efforts, and does that correlate with the goals that I've set? So what are your goals for 2020? With that, I'm going to, on your workbook that you've downloaded, I'm just going to have you fill in, we'll take a quick moment here, the revenue target. And you're going to know how many clients or cases you need to get to that. Typically, there's an average number that we're working with and that we're aware of, and you're going to use that just for simple math, right? What is that going to come out to monthly? And then how many inbound calls or referrals or chats, form fills, whatever that first contact is, are you going to need to get to that? And that just comes back to the average case value. So a quick example, and this is just to use round numbers. This might be a bit high for some and really low for others, but for round numbers, let's say that at the end of 2020, we wanted to be billing $1.5 million. Simple math, divide that by 12, that comes out to $125,000 a month. Now, you're going to want to adjust that, right? You're not going to come out of the gates if you haven't been doing this, or if you're at half of that number in 2019. It's probably folly to think that you're going to jump up to $125,000 in January, but that's the number that you're going to want to distribute throughout your calendar. If your average case value is, and please put in whatever number in your workbook is applicable to you, if your average case value is $2,000, that's going to come out to 62 cases per month that you need to be billing for. So with that, how many leads do you need to get to that 62? And this is where your conversion rate is going to matter. And unfortunately for attorneys, it's a little more complicated because people typically don't come to our website on the first touch and say, I want to hire you. There's typically a conversation that happens before, and those are the three conversions that you're going to want to track. But in any case, you want to divide your target value by that conversion rate to figure out how many leads you need. So what is your goal for 2020? Let's take a moment and drop that in the chat if you're so inclined, and certainly put it in your workbook. Oh, got a note here from Randy. How much is spent on marketing? Sorry, must have missed your note from earlier, but yeah, that's certainly a big question to answer. Great. So now that we've established at least the goals and the overall broad picture of where we want to be financially, I'd like to talk a little bit about just the fundamentals of marketing. And some folks talk about the 4 Ps in marketing. I try to keep it a little simpler than that, and just 3 Ms that we'll be looking at. What is your message? Who's the market? And then what media are you going to be using to reach out to that market? So let's talk about how that fits in and updating your marketing message, because a lot of folks, I think they really miss on this, or they're going by their gut versus having a formalized plan for putting that together. And it really comes down to, can you tell me about your ideal client? Let's not look back at everyone that you've worked with last year, because you've probably worked with some folks that you never want to work with again, right? Let's pull them out of the equation and really focus on what's the ideal. And one of the things that a marketing maxim is, the riches are in the niches. And what you'll find is when you niche down, certainly that's important from a legal case because of malpractice issues, but it's also important because it really allows you to communicate clearly in a soundbite what you can do for that ideal customer. So one exercise that we routinely do in the marketing sphere is, can we put together an avatar of our ideal customer, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, whomever they may be. And with that avatar, what we're looking at is, who they are, what their goals are, what their pains and frustrations are, their fears, the implications of those, et cetera, et cetera. The more detailed, the better. The idea here is if you can picture who you're crafting your message to, you're going to have that much more of an effective message. Some of the basics, the easiest was, what's the education level of that person? And by the way, this is going to be different for every type of specialty. And that's why I wouldn't encourage you to copy what's on the screen here in our webinar. It really needs to be crafted for your specialty, because there's a very big difference in the way that you're going to talk to somebody hasn't gotten their high school diploma versus somebody who's a grad student. Very big difference in that. But some of the things that we'll look at is just the basic demographics of who you're speaking with, certainly their pains and frustrations, but peeling that onion a little bit more, what are the fears that they have and the implications of those fears, and then the goals that they have and the desires with that, right? And that carrot and that stick really balance each other out. Because some people are motivated more by pain aversion, some people are motivated more towards the pleasure principle, and you're going to want to craft that into your message. So some people are worried about getting ripped off, right? Being overcharged for legal services or paying a lot of money and not getting the desired result. Other folks realize, legal is a cost of doing business, and they're just gonna work with that. Depending on who your audience is and who your avatar is, you're going to want to craft your message a little bit differently for them. The key here, though, is if you can see Joe Jones through Joe Jones's eyes, you can sell what Joe Jones buys. So what is your message? We'll take a moment here and really answer 2 questions for your message, right? Why should somebody choose you and retain you versus a competitor? And that's a deeply personal question, right? Because you know how you want to run your practice, you know what you're good at, you know the types of cases that you're going to going to do well for. And that's what needs to come through. If you've got an elevator pitch, this is the time you pull out that elevator pitch and kind of fill in these blanks. The other piece here is, what benefits can you offer that target client avatar that they're going to resonate with? And if there's a particular vernacular, if there's a particular language, that's where that comes in. If you're going after the Hispanic market, certainly Spanish language or even Spanglish may be appropriate for what you're doing. Thought we'd share with you just some of the messaging that has worked in the legal ads that we've run across the gamut. Certainly the 24/7 service. And I get it, by the way. Not everyone wants to answer their phone at 2 in the morning, but there are certain specialties where it makes sense to have at least an answering service there to grab those calls for you quickly. No fee unless we win. I think you can tell what specialty that's from. But focusing on the number of years of experience that you have. If you're in a high volume area of the law, perhaps bankruptcy, you might even want to talk about the number and volume of cases that you've already done. Certainly language, and then location. That's going to be a huge driver, and frankly, going to be an efficiency for you, right? It's a lot tougher on both sides if there's a 3-hour drive involved in a meeting versus a 20-minute. So your location is going to be a big part. And go ahead and make your case. With the 24-hour service, we only collect if we win, making that painless process for you and discretion. So hopefully we've got a couple ideas for our messages in our workbook, and we can take a look at the next piece, which is your media. Where is your message going to go? With that, the most important and powerful piece of your media, at least in our opinion, is going to be your website. We're pretty much a WordPress shop. We certainly work in a lot of platforms. We've just found that WordPress seems to work the best for the level of detail and technology that most of our clients need, along with the simplicity of use. But regardless of what it is, your website is going to be the hub of your digital marketing, here in shown in the Google and the podcast, Twitter, Facebook. But you can even picture on the outside of this another ring of media, and that would be your traditional, right? For those of you that have billboards out there, TV, radio, whatever, print maybe, that's also going to be a part of this. But all of that is going to fall apart if your hub isn't designed to convert well. And here's an example, and then we'll give you a checklist on it, but what you should be looking at for some of the minimum points on your site. Clear call to action, who you are, what you do, how you take away their pain points, how you deliver services for your client. What is that? Up in the right-hand corner where the eye tends to gravitate towards is your phone number. And then notice on this page, there's 2 calls to action. Get started, get my free consultation. And then over here, you'll notice that there's lead form, right? First name, last name, email, how are you going to get in touch? What you want to do is make sure that your website is a tool to convert visitors to callers versus a barrier to getting that visitor to become a caller. So quick cheat sheet here. One of the things, and we'll need to update this slide a little bit, 30-40% of mobile, of traffic searches being mobile. We're actually seeing a 10% growth in that every single year. And we even have some websites that we manage that have 90% mobile traffic. So what I'm going to encourage you to do right after this call, make a little note in your workbook, is look at your website for the first time. And hopefully it's not the first time, but for the first time on your mobile device, and see if that's going to be something that people are going to be able to even interact with. One of the first things to check is, is there a call to action as soon as they come onto your page? And is there a click to call for them? You don't want them to sit there tapping on your phone number and not get anywhere. It's a phone, right? So if they can't call you from their own phone, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go to another legal services provider. As a part of the rewards, you'll get these bullet points here. There is a full checklist, and if you'd like someone from our team to review that with you, we can certainly set up a strategy session. We'll talk a little bit more, go through the checklist together, and even give a few pointers for whoever is maintaining this for you on what they can do to help you maximize conversions on your site. But basically, what we've seen, what's been communicated to us, is the biggest challenges biggest issue facing law firms is unconverted leads. Putting some numbers to that, 50 to 60%, right? Half, if not more, of inbound visits leave unconverted. And if you're running, $20,000 in ads every month, that's a big problem, right? Literally half of your budget is wasted. Another staggering statistic that can be worked around if you do it right is the web forms that are on pages. 90% of the time, they're going to fail to convert. So you've got to have other conversion areas on your website, because let's face it, most people are going to pick a different pathway, a different way to interact with you when they're ready. But for those leads, even when they're generated, one of the pieces of feedback we get is it wasn't a good lead, right? The person didn't ever answer. They weren't serious. That's the common one we hear. What we found, and various studies, feel free to Google it, is that within 15 minutes of the lead being generated, 15, that lead goes cold. And if you think about your own behavior, the answer is right there, right? Typically, when we have a problem that we want to solve, we're going to go on the web, we're going to go wherever, and we're going to go through 3 to 5 vendors. And the first one that we interact with that gives us the answer we're looking for, gives us the hope that we need, we've made the decision right there. So if they come to your website, leave a message, fill out a form, get your voicemail, whatever that may be, and then call the next person on the list, and there's an answer, even if that answer is, let's book a time tomorrow, guess what happened? You've just fallen into 3rd place, 4th place, 10th place, whatever it is. You're not going to hear from that person unless the primary person, primary law firm that they're speaking with falls apart in some way. Beyond that, you're going to need to follow up with a client 5 to 7 times before they're going to retain you. And I'm not suggesting that you should be making 5 to 7 phone calls, but there are ways to automate this and offload this so that technology is handling that for you versus you doing all the work. And by the way, today's consumer, especially with all the robo-dialings out there, they don't prefer to communicate via phone. Text, some sort of messaging platform needs to be integrated into your flow. And luckily, there's plenty of technologies out there. There's no shortage of ways to do this. So leveraging marketing automation to follow up on those web forms is critical. I think you should be doing this in your first 30 to 60 days in your practice. And what we have found is a 10-fold increase in what people are saying are serious clients just by getting them on the hook and interacting with them immediately. By that, there's technologies where, and frankly, our favorite usage case was a voicemail goes out basically saying, hey, just following up with you on the form fill that you made. I'm going to send you a text and an email with a link to my calendar. Let's talk. And by following up with that, bookings for this client actually went up 10-fold. It blew my mind. Certainly, it blew the client's mind as well, and something I recommend you do. Automate that process. You don't want to do that yourself. And by the way, with regards to the texting and the voicemail, it doesn't have to be from a singular cell phone. There are technologies where you can have a shared number and basically drive that through your customer management, your CRM, your practice management tools. And I'd encourage you to look into that. If you don't already have someone who can help you with that, we'd be happy to speak with you on a strategy session. And the bottom line, and this was another staggering finding for us, when we surveyed 400 different legal websites, we found that less than 5% are using these types of technologies, right? Having some sort of a live chat, some way to interact with somebody in that office. And number is a little bit higher when you go to Facebook. On Facebook, it's closer to about 15%. I think it was just under 15%, where if you message the firm through Facebook, someone has the ability to reach back out to you. But that means 85, 95% of your competitors aren't doing this, and it's a simple way to engage with your prospective clients at the early end, and hopefully book a consult. So simple math, right? And we're just going to use that $2,000 average case number because, frankly, it's an easy number to work with. But if you're converting 10% of the people that initially talk with you, have some sort of a reach out, out of 100 of those, that's going to come out to what? 10 cases, right? And 10 cases at $2,000 each, $20,000. Not going to make or break it. Well, not going to make your year, that's for sure. So what if we were able to take that 10% and make it 30%, or take that 30% and make it 60%, right? What if we could take what we already are getting and just do a better job of working with that prospect? So at 30%, that same $2,000 average case now turns into $60,000. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do in your practice. It makes every single lead that you generate that much more valuable, right? If you've got that $1,000 ad budget and you're able to double or triple the number of clients that you're getting from it, that's a good day. Let's do this in your business. Great. So a lot of talking. Back to the interactive portion. I'd love to hear from you and for you to take a moment in your workbook. Let's talk about the conversion elements that you want to implement on your website. Great. All right. So got a couple of chats here. Looks like Randy is looking to just get the phone number. And actually, no, that wasn't Randy. Excuse me, that was Marlon. Yeah, definitely a big upgrade for the website, and it's something that folks will need. Looks like Joey here is typing. Oh, you want to chat? Great. We'll set something up. Randy on here, who's kind of moderating, we'll set something up. Let's chat. Great. So hopefully you got some takeaways, got some notes on what you learned there, what you're noticing in your own practice, your own digital footprint versus what other folks are doing. And thanks for sharing. Great. We're in the bottom half here. Let's talk a little bit about tracking your KPIs. And this is something that is a bit of a hot button for me, because in the marketing world, there's as we follow up other firms, there's a lot of reporting that goes out, and sometimes it just gets too distracting to figure out, what's important here, right? And a KPI, key performance indicator, it should be just that. Here's the key, or here are the couple key metrics that we need to follow. So what you'll find in a lot of reporting is, you got this many visits, got this many clicks, you got this much time spent on site, et cetera, et cetera. And from the marketer's standpoint, those are going to be important metrics. But for you and your practice, it's really going to come down to your call tracking and making sure you've got technology set out there where you can see who's calling you, where those calls are coming from, and what traffic drivers are creating those returns. But then also, what is that average cost for each call that you're tracking? I'll say at the outset here, this is a remarkably, incredibly efficient campaign. I wouldn't expect that for you. Heck, in the personal injury space, we've got campaigns where we're paying up to $300 just for a click. So this number here for your average lead cost is definitely on the lower end, but it will change, right? Your mileage will vary depending on what your practice area is. In any case, I'm going to encourage you on a very simple dashboard, right? There's 7 metrics here to track how many leads you're getting, right? In this case, 513. How many of them just came from organic methods, basically the Google search page, but then also break out, if you're running paid campaigns, how many of those came from the paid campaigns. as well as anything that's on Google Maps, Google My Business. People do search there quite frequently, as you can see from this campaign. The web forms on your website, and then social or other things. You should have another number in your lead breakdown for each channel that you're focusing on from the digital domination graphic that we shared with you. So definitely a dashboard for you to keep and to work on and take a look at least on a monthly basis, weekly if you can. And from there, we get to build our 2020 plan. What we have found is most attorneys, when we look at 7 different channels or venues that you can drive traffic to your practice on, most attorneys are really just in 2, maybe 4 of these areas. Certainly Google search, they want to show up for their own name. But then paid ads, oftentimes we'll find somebody in the office that's just trying to run some ads for themselves with varying degrees of success on that. Social is a great piece and one that's a little higher in the funnel, but certainly a place that you want to be, especially what we often find is if somebody's looking for an attorney, they'll go to their own social network and say, hey, I'm looking for a divorce attorney. And then the friend who's worked with you will say, hey, talk to Bobby and tag you in that post. So incredibly important for you to keep an eye on that social piece. Not all of these are going to work for everybody. And the PR aspect over here, getting interviews, getting podcasts, starting a podcast, doing those sorts of things, press releases, that can be very time consuming and it isn't right for everybody. But what I will say is if you've got the bandwidth, right, if you've got more time than billable hours, it does make sense to start nurturing some of the local relationships with media. And that way, when things come up, you're on the short list of someone who's going to get interviewed on that topic. And guess what happens after that interview? You're considered the expert in the field and the calls really come to you organically. So again, if you've got more time than billable hours, certainly something to look at. Couple trends that I'd like to share with you as you're figuring out which of these channels you're going to want to ramp up in 2020. Reviews, right? Review sites have been out there forever, easily 10 years, probably longer than that. But with Google integrating those into the search engine results page, they've never been more important than they are now. Because frankly, if there's three attorneys showing up for whatever the search is, the one with the most positive reviews, they're going to get the call first, right? They're viewed as the trusted source. So it's up to you to keep an eye on the various review sites, be it Avvo, certainly Yelp and Google My Business and even Facebook, and doing what you can to curate the right kind of reviews, but then also addressing the negative reviews, which inevitably are going to happen. Also, key trend we touched on earlier is just shifting that conversation from the phone to messaging, be it Facebook Messenger, live chat, text, whatever it is, especially with the robocalling, robodials, and all the things that are going on there. People are just answering their phones less and less. And frankly, just the nature of mobile phones, right? They might not be in a place where they can or want to answer your call, but a text message is that much easier to respond to. So make sure you've got the technology in place for that. And then having an all-in perspective, right? You can't, in this day and age, rely on one channel to drive all of your traffic. And by the way, that goes with word of mouth too, right? It really is important to be available and visible on all the channels so that wherever that user is looking for legal help, legal representation, they're going to be able to find you and see good things about you. And this graphics is going to be a great one for you to keep at the top of your marketing plan, where you can just say, hey, little note, this is what I'm doing in this area, this is what I'm doing in that area. Even if it is a simple press release, at least you're doing something to be visible in each of those channels. And with that, you can build your custom plan. The checklist that we referenced earlier, that's going to be in the rewards section, but if you want to just get to that document directly, just come to our website, thinkonething.com/checklist. All right. So love to hear what are some marketing initiatives that you plan to implement to reach your 2020 goal. Got a note here from Marlon. Let's see. Marketing, are you losing out on revenue? That's a good question, Marlon. If you have digital agencies with rates higher than yours, we should definitely talk. Sorry for the sales pitch, but you definitely should revisit that relationship. Let's see, what else do we have here? Great, Judy, you want to talk? Randy will reach out for you on that one. Great, thank you. All right. So hopefully you have a few takeaways, what you've learned, what you've noticed that's going on in your market. Maybe we reinforced some of the things that you were already noticing, but really hadn't internalized, and how it impacts your practice. So what have we covered so far? Quick recap. Setting our goals for 2020. How many leads you need to hit your target? I think we've got that number, and really some of the other numbers that are going to help you get there. We reviewed the three fundamentals, 3 M's of marketing success, and how to optimize your website and really some of your other digital properties for conversions, in the year 2020, but even in beyond, as people are changing the way that they're interacting digitally, and what their touch points are, their preferences and technologies. Hopefully you got a big picture, especially with the digital dominance graphic there on the different marketing channels, and what you need to do, or at least looking at that and being able to write some notes at the tail end of this call on how you're going to utilize each of those channels to get your message out there. And then some of the latest trends that you need to be aware of here in 2020. And hopefully you've got a customized action plan based on where you are today, right? I realize not everyone's in the same place, and that's totally fine, right? That's where a customized plan is going to be critical. If you would like some help, we're here for you on that. Just type in the comments, let's talk, and Randy will do some follow-up with you, and we can get together, have a strategy session. Certainly you can come to our website, Think One Thing, and we can talk about that. Again, our mission is to triple the size of 200 law firms. And whether it's, in a formal arrangement, or you just following us online, that's fine. We just want to get you there. Because frankly, the thing that we've noticed, and I guess we think we can fix, is there's that 1%, 5% of law firms out there that just have tremendous budgets, ridiculous budgets, and frankly, it's almost impossible to escape them, right? You're going to see them everywhere. And then we see kind of everyone else is faced with those high costs to try and keep up, and we don't think it needs to be that way. What we've really found is, these technologies are approachable. It's just somebody who knows how to implement them for the legal practice, and we'd love to partner with you in that way. And frankly, think you'll be surprised at how accessible, how approachable those things are. Love to talk to you about it. So, promise you a reward. Thank you so much for sticking around with us throughout the presentation. If you go to our website, thinkonething.com/reward. Right there, you'll have the 3 documents that we talked about: the checklist, digital dominance graphic, and most commonly searched terms. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a fantastic week.